Hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show Review with Mike G, the show of life, the show of rum, San Francisco, Washington, D.C., Depeche Mode, and Tiki. Yes, that's right. Today's guest is a man of Tiki, the author of Smuggler's Cove, Exotic Cocktails, Rum, and the Cult of Tiki, Mr. Martin Cate. He was in town just a few weeks ago for Texas Tiki Week talking about the cultural impact of Tiki, not just the cocktail impact of Tiki, something much larger than just rum and blended fruit juices, something much bigger, Polynesian funk, if you will. So we talk about a lot of different things. Talk about Martin's new book. We talk about the 80s, goth rock, The Cure. So many great nuggets here. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Martin Cate.
Tune out. It became a kind of a 1950s fascination. There was even a TV show.
Wait,
there was a pilot, and it was called The Beachcomber, and it was all about a stressed out ad executive in San Francisco, actually, who just dreams of chucking it all. This idea of he would just look out the window of his office, and he hated his boss, and he hated the stress of his 9 to 5, and he just thought, I wonder if I could just make this work collecting coconuts on the beach.
Man, it's a brilliant thing.
That really illustrated a lot of people's beliefs at that time, or feelings at that time of this. You know, the tiki bar on the corner was that place you could go to where it was always twilight, where there was always some gentle music playing, a soft babble of water.
A wonderland?
A wonderland.
Yeah.
Where you could say, and I guarantee you that thousands and thousands of sort of Mai Tai fueled fantasies were born in tiki bars throughout the 1950s, where someone would be sipping it and saying, you know, what if I just left? What if I just
got away,
hung it up, and just went and just wandered the beach, collected shells?
Yeah.
Because I think that fantasy spoke to people really powerfully in the 1950s and does today as well.
Well, and it's the Red Scare, right?
That too.
You had to get to, with so much of, as we were talking about social just a moment ago, so much all the time, everybody pointing fingers. Tiki, again, maybe it was a savior of sorts.
It is. It's a beacon, and it's a respite from. Oh, someone said this quote I liked. Called it the tiki bars with the bomb shelters of the atomic age. So not only was your job stressful, your suburban house, the kids are home screaming, you don't want to go home, and you just think, God, I'll just have a cocktail. But of course, the same thing is that existential threat of nuclear annihilation, which is hanging over everybody throughout the Cold War. And funny, here we are again.
With this every 50 years?
Yeah, apparently so. But here we are again with, this sort of threat of nuclear war, or just, tiki bars have that now more than ever quality about them. I really need to go somewhere where I can forget about things. And so that's why we try to provide this space where there's no televisions and there's no windows. I don't want you to look out the window. I don't want you to see any traffic. I don't want to see, like you might be hearing in the background right now.
Right.
I don't want you to see any tension. I don't want you to, ideally, you'll just keep your damn phone in your pocket and just engage in human interaction.
Do you think, okay, here's a good question. So, I'm giving myself credit, I guess, for it being a good question before.
This is a brilliant idea I just had.
I'm pondering this. So they are projects, right? So whether we make a spirit, whether we make a movie, whether we write a book, or whether we craft an aesthetic and experience at Smuggler's Cove, for instance, how much of that is you saying, this is how I think you should experience a cocktail? How much of it is prescriptive? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And all of our spaces, we don't make things look, they're not cookie cutter, because they sort of tend to grow organically.
Yeah.
There's real artwork inside, and things just sort of appear. So But we are attempting to recreate what was a very popular recreational destination for Americans, an extraordinarily popular one in the 1950s. It's very easy to forget because so much of it was destroyed, but they were everywhere. There are tiki bars in every city of every size across America. And because, for whatever reason, the American fascination with the South Pacific, which really started in the 19th century, had a kind of a it was almost like a mass hypnosis over the population, you know, or the sense that was whatever it is, whatever your vision of paradise is, you know, whether it's I'm at the top of the slopes and it's a perfect day and it's all fresh powder and I'm the only guy up on the hill, or whether it's, you know, I'm alone I'm a ninth hole, I'm playing Spyglass. Whatever your vision of your perfect getaway is, and everybody's is a little bit different. For whatever reason, in the 1950s, in America, it was oftentimes it was commonly the South Pacific.
I wonder why. I mean, I remember there's Rodgers and Hammerstein. There's musicals. What do you think besides trade and all that?
Starts in the 19th century with Robert Louis Stevenson, Tales of Adventure.
Okay,
the South Pacific has this mystique as being paradise, but also exciting, also untamed or wild.
Yeah, there you go.
And there's a sense that the South Pacific is sort of the last bastion of real adventure, and so we fall in love with that element, but we also fall in love with the idea of it's a moonlit night and there's warm trade winds off the water, and it's the ultimate of relaxation, and it's escape, and it's a rejection of the modern world. It's a rejection of industrialization. It's a rejection of commercialism. It's got this quality to it. People mistakenly, and it's a common mistake, but people tend to mistakenly think of tiki bars as a celebration of colonialism, when it's not in the slightest.
Yeah.
It's a rejection of Western ideas, and rather than suggesting that Western ideas need to be brought everywhere, they're saying it's about a sense of leaving it all behind, saying how much can I strip out of my life, what's the minimum I need in my life to survive, and maybe all I really need is a fresh coconut and a beach.
Right. So going back to that, it doesn't have to be a fantasy, but it is in a sense a fantasy of, as you said, a respite, which is a beautiful word for it, going someplace else.
Yeah.
Is it cruel ever to provide such a beautiful experience that we just have to walk away from and kind of enter the real world again at 2 a.m.?
One of the it's more pronounced when folks come in at happy hour, have a few, and then leave at 7, and the sun's still up.
Yeah.
They walk out of this dimly lit twilight bar, and then all of a sudden the blazing sun, the bright light of day blasts through the wall, and everyone goes squints up their eyes and says, "Oh, it's still daylight. God, I thought
this went away already."
Psychologically into my evening, and I didn't realize the sun was still out. You know, Americans...
You see what I'm saying? Like the duality of it, where you're providing this thing, and it's like, fuck, I really got to go back to work.
You know, Americans in the 1950s, experiential dining, what used to be incredibly popular in America, whether it was your Mexican restaurant that looked like an old sort of hacienda inside, or whether it was your German beer hall or your Swiss fondue chalet space, or whatever it is. Americans loved cultural immersion sort of dining experiences. It was kind of like a brief ethnographic lesson in something else. Like you walked in and you learned something, a very small part, or just a little sliver of another culture. People like that. I'm going to go to this German beer hall, and everyone's wearing dirndls and lederhosen, and they're, here's a big pretzel and things. I haven't learned about Germany.
Well, you get to dip your foot in, and you get to leave at your convenience.
Yes,
right?
it's just a brief cultural immersion, and so this style of restaurant was incredibly popular, and there were lots of them all over the United States, and everything kind of fell out of favor because of the relentless rise of modernism. This notion, as modernism became very popular post-war, aesthetically and sort of intellectually, this notion of casting aside artifice, of throwing away those kind of themed experiences. Restaurants, bars, residential living, everything became very austere. Everything
okay.
became glass and steel and very
Puritanical, perhaps?
It's not necessarily puritanical. It's just we really fell for that modernist aesthetic.
Okay.
And the modernist aesthetic hated artifice. So artifice and theme dining and things like that were relegated largely in America to the theme park.
Right.
For example, where that's where you find the themed concept experience.
Okay.
So as you know today, you go to most restaurants today, and what do they look like? They're hard tables, hard chairs, naked light bulbs, and
Kind of stuffy sometimes.
well, steel and glass. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, they're designed to put the guests' attention, focus, and interest not on their surroundings
Right.
or, frankly, their comfort, but into the food in front of them or the drink in their hand. That becomes the obsession.
I see.
Like, there's nothing else to look at in here. This is a plain steel table on you're sitting on a plain steel bench, and we just have glass and steel. So just Instagram your food now. There's nothing else to see here.
Could you say,
Yes.
maybe it is egoism? That we're trying to divert attention to these things. Hey, look, that I've created this.
Yep. Very much.
Yeah.
Very much. I don't want to tirade about this too long, but I do have some pretty strong feelings about how we design experiences for guests, because I feel like style is frequently chosen over comfort and of the guest. To me, it's more important that I'm just going to put this little metal bar stool out for you that is not comfortable because it looks cool.
Yeah.
It's got a nice sort of sleekness to it. I don't care if your butt hurts. It's probably for the best that your butt hurts because I need to turn tables.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
If you write a New York Times food critic, not Pete Wells, but another one has written about this too, in the sense that, like, I just don't feel like I'm the afterthought. I feel like the tables are so close together.
Right.
I feel like the space is so loud. There's no sound dampening. There's it's a cacophony of noise, and it's just, that I feel like, sometimes you feel like the operator just wants to just turn and burn.
Right.
And toss you out.
Serve themselves and not the people.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, so I'm really a big fan of upholstery. I
Yeah.
like padded bar stools and comfortable chairs and things like that, and benches and things. There's some nice couches out here where we're sitting right now, but it's still, where I could see that you could lounge and relax. But I feel like that's sometimes that gets left behind.
I think so. It's one of those things where I think that you actually love people.
Yes.
They don't annoy you? Do you find yourself forgiving? Do you find yourself patient more than most?
No. My staff would probably say no. He's an angry man. We fortunately are in a position, and partly because our guests are smarter and better educated, know more about spirits than ever before, but also part of the kind of efforts we've taken to try to sell our concept. And you could call me bullheaded, but it was always really like, look, we've got this idea, and we got to make it work. We got to push it on to guests. We have to sell them on something that they maybe aren't going to be familiar with.
Right.
These are cocktails that are unfamiliar, spirits that are unfamiliar. So when the guest comes in, we have to hold their hand. We have to say, hi, how are you? Here's a menu. Let me present it to you, because you're going to look at the back bar. You're going to see a bunch of unfamiliar things, and maybe you're going to just fall to a comfort zone. You're going to see all this stuff. You're going to say, just give me a gin and tonic.
Right.
Which is fine, of course. We'll make you a gin and tonic. But at the same time, I'd like to show you this menu. We work very hard at executing these drinks. We make all these custom ingredients, and we do this. And if you have any questions, let us know. But I would like you to drink this. This is what we're here for.
Yeah.
We do. So nowadays, the guests are, and I guess partly because of that stubbornness on my part, and just because, again, largely, like I say, the guests are really, really well informed now. There's great outlets and magazines and newspapers talk about cocktails all the time, talk about spirits all the time. So that now there's a sense that when you come to Smuggler's Cove, you've made a conscious choice to go to a space for the experience we offer, and that's wonderful.
Yeah.
We do 94% sales are from our drink menu or neat rums.
Amazing.
So 6%, all other spirits, all beer, all wine, all non-alcoholic, is just 6% of sales.
Yeah.
In other words, the kind of proof of concept is there. People are coming in and saying, hey, let's grab some friends. Let's go have a volcano bowl at Smuggler's Cove. That's what you do there. That's why you go there. You don't go there gee, they only have one IPA. This selection is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
So you're offering an immersive
We're offering an immersive experience and we want you to. So to back up a little bit, we've been trying to say, one of my big sort of missions or tirades has been to say, for years and years, the bar side of a restaurant, or the bar itself, has been, the expectation is that it needs to be everything to everyone.
Sure.
That every bar should have the same wide back bar of spirits, that they should have, we should always be able to get a Bloody Mary at any bar at any time. We should always be able to get a Cosmo at any bar at any time. And that's an expectation that's never placed on a restaurant. Nobody goes to the sushi bar and says, "What do you mean you don't have burritos?"
Yeah.
God damn it, I hate this place. So that expectation, restaurants have gone past that expectation. Everybody knows, what do you feel like tonight? I feel like Korean food tonight.
Sure.
Let's go eat Korean food tonight. Great. So what we're saying with the bar is, let us focus on something like a Korean place focuses on Korean food. Let us focus on one thing and do it very well. That's kind of a new thing. So in our case, that means being single spirit focused bar and a single cocktail style focused bar, basically. So I don't have any Bloody Mary mix.
Yeah.
I don't have any cranberry juice.
Not real surprised.
I can't. I really can't. I guess I could. I guess we could make it. Yeah,
that'd be interesting. A cranberry tilted tiki. I mean, I haven't had one, but
there's some drinks that have cranberry juice, but there wasn't enough for me to carry cranberry juice in an ongoing role. Most of our stuff predates the use of the blender.
Right.
So we have drink mixers, but we don't have blenders at Smuggler's Cove. So people sometimes are a little surprised that they can't get a frozen drink.
Right.
So the frozen drink came much later. The drink mixer was there day one, and was the dominant tool for making these cocktails. So there's little things like that. So when you sort of stand now, it doesn't even mean just that it's tiki or rum or another single spirit, or like gin, like Whitechapel.
Right.
But even a place like a modern craft cocktail bar, a place like in San Francisco, I don't know, say a place like Trick Dog.
Okay.
Here's their curated menu. Here's the experience they want to offer. Here's what they're going to promote. They do not have everything for everyone.
Yeah.
Even though they have a broader mission than I do, for example, in that they're offering good cocktails. They're still saying, look, this is what we do. This is our menu. This is our specialties. And, fortunately, at this point, guests are on board with that.
Right.
And guests come in and do want that.
There's the best, one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I might have said this in other interviews, is Lemmy said, raise your flag and see who salutes it.
Yeah.
And that's it, man. Like putting your vision out there, putting your feelings for aesthetic, your preference for how to interact with people. I mean, these are your kids.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so you care for them in that same kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. And you do hope, and of course, if it doesn't work, if the response isn't there and the guests aren't into it, then you have to adjust. Then you do have to change, and then you do have to reevaluate.
Right.
And say, well, maybe this isn't working and things. But, I mean, we were pretty adamant about how I wanted Smuggler's Cove to be, to get back to your point about, curating.
You were intentional, yeah.
It was very intentional, and I'm fortunate that it worked.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that it worked. It's very possible that it might not have. So, it's not like I did focus groups or something.
Well, no, of course not. How do you draw on a whiteboard how to feel?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
you have to, it's got to be guttural, and it has to be primitive, and it's got to come from a place of passion. So I want to tie this all back, because obviously we've got so much to talk about in terms of rum and tiki, which this reemergence of this like fascination and passion towards tiki. But all of this kind of begins for you in Fairfax, California. You're in California.
Beautiful. Fairfax, California, yes. It is beautiful. So where does this all start? I guess the first thing that I talk about in the book is when I was a little kid, and we would go to this restaurant in Santa Cruz called Zanzibar, which was a tropically themed space. And I don't remember anything. I had, I think, a little tiki bar in the back, but I was too young to be going to the bar. I had a little thatched roof bar. But the thing I remember was this fruit salad. That's what I got every time. Fruit salad is kind of a random thing to order as a dinner entree. When you're...
This explains a lot, though, I think.
Yeah, when you're whatever, 8 years old, give me the fruit salad. But why I got the fruit salad was because it had this incredible presentation. They brought this big platter out and had a conch shell on it, and all this fruit spilling out of the conch shell, making like a little fruit river. And I mean, it was my first introduction to dining as experience,
right?
And this notion that it's not just food; it's a on a plate. This is like somebody cared, somebody crafted this experience.
They almost painted it for you.
Yes,
Right.
they painted this experience for me on a plate, and I was enchanted.
Yeah.
Because I was 8 and impressionable and everything else.
Colorful, right?
But it's colorful, and it's an experience. I mean, you see it. I mean, even in modern restaurants, it's something that's really well plated and beautifully done. It's just not slop for sustenance.
Right.
It's an experience, and this nice effort. And it was probably just shitty fruit out of a can.
But
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. They took the time.
It was how they took the time.
Right.
They made the effort, and they presented it beautifully.
Yeah.
So that was fantastic, and that's what it sort of inspired me to go on. And then it was while I was living in Washington D.C. in college, and I was interning at this embassy.
Well, so real quick, because this is a big jump, right? Well, so first, because you talk about this nice curated experience, you're very interested. When you talk about hospitality on the whole, which probably isn't even percolating in your mind yet today,
no.
were your folks or anybody in the family kind of in that industry? Something that might have planted the seed for you?
No,
not at all.
No hospitality in anywhere in my family, which is interesting. I don't. My parents were both. My parents were both public servants.
Oh, really?
My father was career city manager at multiple cities in California. My mother taught what's called O&M, orientation and mobility, which is spatial education for blind people.
Interesting.
How to work in environments and understand how to cane travel and things like that.
So was it pretty seeming coming from these different backgrounds? Was it an open upbringing in terms of sense culture's cool. Let's go explore. Let's go travel.
Yeah, absolutely. A terrific childhood. Parents were wonderful and supportive, and definitely took me to lots of museums, cultural events, and things like that. I think, my father and I always got on very well, although he didn't understand what I was talking about at any time because I was pretty young and somewhat precocious and into, science fiction and
writing, reading, watching.
All of the above.
Yeah. Anybody to relate on a film level? What was something that kind of?
What were films that made
really
a big impact early in my life?
It's a great way to visualize stuff.
It's a good question. Let me think. What were some? Of course, being a good child of the '70s. Of course, I was obsessed with Star Wars.
Yes.
And
Blade Runner too.
Blade Runner. Yeah. I don't think I saw Blade Runner quite just. That came out in '81 or '82. Right, yeah. I was a little young. I didn't see it until later because I would have been about 9 at that point. I think Blade Runner would have been a little too much, a little over my head.
A little
over my head. Star Wars and Empire were pretty easy to grok.
Yeah.
To use a science fiction word. But I definitely enjoyed that, and I got into reading science fiction. Really fell in love with Bradbury in particular.
Real quick, do you have Amazon Prime?
I do. Yeah.
Okay, so I love Bradbury. And Martian Chronicles is one of my favorite books. Mm-hmm. There's a series. Do you remember this series in the 80s called the Ray Bradbury Chronicle? Or is it Ray Bradbury Theater?
Yeah. Sure.
It's on Amazon Prime now. Oh, cool. It is obscure as shit.
Yeah.
There's no reason it should be on there. But it is. And it's always cool to go back and watch this. And as an adult, kind of reprocess those things you really bonded with when you're younger,
Nice.
But being a creative type then, you mentioned theater and all of this.
Yeah.
But also was there a facet in politics as well?
Political studies started in college.
Yeah.
And that was really only so. To catch up, I guess through high school, like I said, it was a lot of sci-fi. I loved Doctor Who and Star Trek, and The Prisoner had a huge impact on me.
Yeah, it's great.
And I finished high school, and there were basically two things I wanted to do when I went to college. Number one, I had decided I was absolutely obsessed with becoming a funeral director.
How in the hell?
I left that out of the book, right?
How does that become a thing?
I just thought, I found it to be the most, I started reading a little bit about, I think I started reading, which is not the endorsement of the funeral industry, but I think I read Mitford and American Way of Dying.
Yeah.
And I was also a good goth too. Okay. So I mean, that's.
See, I was, really what I was trying to say. Martin, you were a goth, right?
Yeah.
Depeche Mode side or Duran Duran side or the Cure side?
Oh, Cure.
Okay,
absolutely.
Got it. Perfect.
Oh yeah. And so being a good eyeliner wearing, trench coat wearing goth kid, I thought funeral directing was great. So I actually went to San Francisco College of Mortuary Science to
No
take a
kidding.
tour with their director, to do kind of like a pre-admissions tour to learn more. And I was fascinated by it because it's a little afield, right? But it taught you everything. So it was all this business management.
Yeah.
It was embalming. It was hair and makeup. It was counseling, grief counseling.
Holy crap.
It taught you everything you needed to know to run your own funeral home.
It's like a business degree in a way.
It was. It was. It was a 2-year program, and you went to and it was a working mortuary that was doing it.
Yeah.
And so you did low cost. Basically, it was like getting a haircut at Barber College. Let the students embalm for like low cost funerals.
Right.
And the woman who ran the school was really interesting, and I had a great meeting with her. And I came back and I told my parents, like, this is it. I think I found a really fascinating career that I'm excited by. And I think my mother was mortified.
I suppose that's
that's
a great word to use.
a great word to use. She said, no. And I said, what do you mean no? What's wrong with this? And she said, I'll tell you what. She said, just go get a 4-year degree. Please. Just go get a 4-year degree at a UC. And if you still want to do it, great. But just have a bachelor's degree under your belt. And if you want to do it after that, terrific. And you'll have at least a bachelor's, and you can fall back on something else if you don't want to do it. I said, all right.
Good mom advice.
Yeah, good mom advice. I was a little grumbly at the time about it. I was like, no, I just want to go do this. Anyway, so plan B, which is entirely a right turn, was that I wanted to, because I did a lot of theater in high school, and I really enjoyed not just the process, but I really also liked my instructor, and I thought, I want to teach high school theater.
Really?
That was where I thought, because I think I knew even then I was like a very so-so actor, and just wanted to. I liked the process of it, and I liked
directing. Is that a good word for it?
Directing so directing high school and teaching high school theater. So I thought, well, I'll go get a theater degree, then I'll get a teaching credential, and I'll just look for work in high schools. So I actually got into college as a theater major, and I quickly realized, as much as I was enjoying it, I started to get a little nervous about whether or not there would be any theater programs left in high schools by the time I graduated, because it's always the first thing to get cut.
Sure, the coaches end up teaching it. Right?
Yeah, exactly, because, heaven forbid you should cut football.
Yeah.
Let them hit. Well, back then we didn't know they were giving each other brain damage, but it's always the band. It's always band, and it's always theater.
It's good
always
stuff.
The arts.
Yes.
Always the arts that get cut in public high schools. So I thought, I think I'm setting myself up to never find a job.
Yeah.
That's what I started getting afraid of. And it was one college advisor I had, who was my advisor throughout, who absolutely inspired me to learn more about political science.
Sure.
And I had initially started thinking about taking Japanese and working in the Pacific Rim, and I did very poorly studying Japanese, and then switched my interests to European studies. And so that's where I ended up finally getting a poli-sci degree.
Any particular period of time or dictator that is of interest to you?
Oh, no, all my focus was on the development and creation of the European Union, the post-war development of the EU. In particular, the development of the single currency. That was my degree and my focus area.
Wow.
So yeah, I've taken about 300 right turns in my life, very random directions.
But it's strange, because if you think it, so one of the things I realize I do when I'm chatting with people on the show is I find these little kind of things that seem interstitial. They don't seem juxtaposed in a way, right?
Yeah.
But you like to direct.
Yeah.
You like to learn. You can write.
Yeah.
You like music and arts. You like people. Tell me what all this perfectly intersects at.
Well, this is
right.
So you're getting to the great story in the book, which was after college, I had spent many years working in transportation logistics, because that was the only real work I could find.
Yeah.
I couldn't find any work in sort of in the political theater dealing with
Maersk
European
or something
studies.
like that?
Maersk, I was working for Maersk for a while, actually in Texas.
No
in
kidding.
fact, I lived in Houston. In fact, I was just meeting Bryce, a guy down here last night who works at Maersk in the Woodlands near Houston, where I used to work.
Small world, man.
Really small world. And at one of these jobs, I got one of these transportation jobs I got laid off. And as part of my severance package, they included a kind of career counselor / therapist sessions.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I met this woman, and I said, and I poured my heart out to her. I told her all the things I'd always wanted to do, couldn't do, career ups and downs, hopes, dreams, etc. I'm very good, very emotional, very cathartic.
Real quick, is that a comfortable thing to do? To be able to be that transparent?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. And we connected pretty well, and I told her all these things. And I said, I had recently read something in a book, a terrific little book, where the author had described himself as a professional amateur.
Yeah.
And I said, that's me. That's it. I'm a professional amateur. I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm great at nothing. I'm not great at anything. I'm just good at things. And I don't have that one overarching thing that just grabbed me from 100 miles away like, man, I'm going to be an amazing pharmacist. This is perfect. This is what I want to do for a living.
Right.
And just reach for the ring and just go.
Yeah.
Never had that feeling. So I told her all of this. And, of course, at this time, now years later, all of this home enthusiasm and passion for tiki has been bubbling under the surface for several years. Have a home tiki bar and all this stuff. And I told her, I said, well, look, I'm just looking at my skill set. I'm looking at my passions and my experience. I do outside sales. I'm good with people. I like to engage with guests or customers. I have a modicum of business acumen. I have a real passion for this tiki experience. I've done theater. I can be kind of gregarious and demonstrative.
Right.
And I said, all of these things circling together seem to me the perfect elements to become a tiki bar owner-operator.
And you're never going to get that advice. She probably never said that to anybody else ever in her whole career.
This is me saying it to her. I told her. I told her. I said, I think this would be perfect for me. And she just went white, and she's like, oh, boy, no.
Wait,
no? And I said, what? And she goes, I can't, and she said, her quote was, I can't in good conscience suggest that you go open a bar.
What the fuck? Really? Why?
Yeah, no, she just thought that was irresponsible advice.
Oh, that's so terrible.
I know. So she thought it was very irresponsible to suggest, because a bar still had this stigma of it being, I don't know, the dregs of society go, or some sort of old puritanical idea about what cocktail bars were, or what was happening in drinking at that time. And she's like, how about catering? Have you ever considered catering? That's a nice thing. And I said,
a neutered version of owning a tiki bar.
Yeah, basically. I said, maybe, okay. Catering's got its moments, I suppose. I just don't. But I thought I sort of started to see myself more in this kind of mold, not exactly, but this kind of more Trader Vic-like mold of this larger-than-life impresario style person running an experience, curating experience for a guest. And so I just sort of shrugged, and our sessions stopped, and then I just did it anyway. I had started tending bar, and I just said, look, I mean, I'm going to take a shot at this. I've got these great home bars. I love entertaining guests. I've never done this professionally, but I'm going to try to figure it out. And if it doesn't work, well, I can always go back to transportation and shipping. I just wanted that sense of saying, well, I tried. Yeah. I gave it a shot, and I didn't want to have a life of sort of what ifs or wondering.
Yeah. And I like that she brought, unintentionally.
Oh yeah.
She brought you to the conclusion that it's formed and really reimagined your life in a sense,
She did, because it was the output, the result rather, of the conversation. Is that the puzzles were starting to come together in my mind as I was talking about. I was like, I think I have all the middling skill. Now, of course, the real thing I needed to know and didn't know, and tell everybody to this day is, should I go get an MBA to own a bar? I said, no, you should apprentice as a plumber.
Yeah,
that's the most important thing you can do. I can tell
actual
you that
work.
Right
Yeah.
Learn to plumb, because it's a business entirely involving liquids.
Yeah.
And liquids, pipes break, toilets back up, things leak. Anytime you have a business that involves water, it goes to shit.
Yeah.
At some point.
Well, that is a legitimate parallel adjacent skill to have. That actually makes plenty of sense.
Oh, I hired a barback once. He's like, I've never barbacked in my life. And I said, what do you do? He said, I'm an apprentice plumber. I said, you're so hired. Sweat copper pipe? You're in. Oh,
Dude,
my God,
no,
this guy.
Massive skills.
Exactly. Hey, can you stay late today? I'll pay you extra. Just work on this.
An eye for talent, Mark. That's
exactly.
part of it, right?
Exactly. Hey, someone flushed an iPhone today. Can you fish it out of the toilet? I've gotten pretty good at snaking toilets, I'll tell you that. Yeah.
I can't imagine the things that you've gotten good at. How many years now are we talking? If this was a retrospective of your career.
Started tending bar in 2004.
2004, okay.
Yeah. And so that was the first time it became professional. Crazy about Tiki for 10 years prior to that. So from 94 onward was really where I've been.
So even before you started professionally bartending, I have a feeling the historical pieces you already knew about and you felt very, very kindred nature.
Absolutely. Started to connect with people at first locally and then ultimately around the world as early as 99, 2000 when we started, online groups started and we started to meet other like-minded Tiki files. And we started having this kind of same shared experience, a lot of us, about, everyone had a little different. Some people were really passionate about mug collecting. Some people were passionate about cocktails.
Right.
Some people were passionate about the music. All these different elements. But it's when you realize that Tiki or Polynesian pop was this really multidisciplinary art form.
Sure.
That there's painters, carvers, mug makers, musicians. There's
very
so
rich.
much. It's extremely rich. And that's why it's like no other cocktail thing in the world. We were just at this bar. Damn it, what's it called? Townsend?
Oh yeah, Townsend.
Townsend.
Yeah, you're doing your presentation.
No, sorry, not to Townsend. That's where the presentation was. Roosevelt Room. Before for the pre-party. And I was talking to someone about this. And I'm looking on their back bar, and they have this really nice menu.
Yeah, it's
organized
beautiful.
Like pre-prohibition, prohibition, post-prohibition, Tiki, Dark Ages, modern. And I looked at this. I said, now see all those columns, all those different eras. There's only one Tiki that isn't just about cocktails. It's an entire movement. It's an arts movement. It's art and music. And like the let's say the Manhattan doesn't have an associated aesthetic.
Oh, that's
a
brilliant point. Yeah.
The Manhattan, may have been served at these various places, or the martini was served at these places, but there's no music connected to them, art connected to them.
You're absolutely right. It's singular.
Yeah. Tiki cocktails, exotic cocktails, are just one part of a larger thing, of a much larger thing.
Yeah.
A whole artistic arts and crafts movement that flourished in America for 30 years.
Yeah.
And so because I came up through it the other way, bartenders are coming into today from the cocktails, and they're into the cocktails.
Yeah.
I came into it from the art and the aesthetic and the design. So those of us who are crazy about Tiki, and if you go to Carolyn and Rob's house, right? And it's it's remarkable. It's a beautiful home bar. We love the art and the aesthetic and the imagery to go with our cocktails. We like it all to be part of a whole.
Well, immersive again.
More immersive experience. The cocktails do not exist in isolation. I talk about. I'm veering off several topics, but I talk about what's context mattering. Context matters.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm at a beautiful New York bar. Let's say I'm at the Waldorf Astoria bar, something like that, and I have an ice cold martini at the Waldorf Astoria bar, and maybe I'm a little gussied up. I got a suit and tie on. I'm feeling good. I'm in Manhattan. I'm having a martini at the Waldorf. That's context, and that's setting, and that's exactly where I want to be having an ice-cold, bracing martini at a beautiful historic bar like that. Now, Smuggler's Cove can make you a flawless martini. It doesn't taste as good as it does at the Waldorf Astoria bar.
Sure.
Flip side to that is Death & Co. makes a perfect zombie. I don't want to drink a zombie at Death & Co. I want to drink a Manhattan or something at Death & Co.
Right.
I want to drink a stirred and whiskey-ish and nicely boozy drink at Death & Co. or something and have that kind of sophisticated New York experience. I say the best garnish, Thaf Stroof is the garnish on the zombie. It's that, zombies taste better under a Thaf Stroof. And I think because it matters, the setting matters. I mean, when I go to the Mai Kai, I don't have a gin and tonic. I have an exotic cocktail in the place that was designed to be a temple for exotic cocktails or for this experience. So context matters.
It really does.
Yeah. And
sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So
Go ahead.
you've put all this time. You
Mhm.
are a spokesman for the culture in a
Mhm.
sense, whether intentional or not.
Mhm.
How do you feel about what may be a perceived responsibility to be at the helm of this tiki movement? Because it's hard to say that there are many other notable personalities, but
Yeah.
some may argue that you are at the helm of this movement.
Well, there's a lot of people, when I think about the people who I look up to and things, when I think about people who, when I think of somebody like, let's say, Sven Kirsten, who wrote Book of Tiki and
Yeah.
Tiki Pop. Now, he doesn't get a lot of recognition in the cocktail community because, again, the cocktail community is focused on the cocktails.
Sure.
And he's the one who helped codify, created the term Polynesian pop to define the art movement, helped codify and define the aesthetic and spell it out in several terrific books.
Right.
But a lot of modern, bartenders don't know about that side or don't research that side or don't understand that side. Now, on the cocktail side, of course, it's me, but it's also, of course, Jeff.
Yeah.
And with Jeff, most bartenders came to it through Jeff's books and Jeff's terrific research. And so in many respects, in the cocktail scene, it would be Jeff and myself frequently are, as you say, kind of at the helm,
Sure.
or people who are turned to for advice, and that's great. And because people had been turning to Jeff for advice for a long time, and he was speaking about the drinks, I felt that with the book, we had a responsibility because we had a platform,
Yeah.
and I was known among the
And an
bartending
audience.
community
Sure.
that I said, well, this is a responsibility of mine, because they said, well, write a book for Smuggler's Cove. Could have just done pretty pictures and cocktails. But I said, I feel like I have a responsibility to try to offer more of an explanation of what it all means.
Yeah.
Why America fell in love with it, where the look and the feel comes from, how we recreate the look and the feel. I wanted to make sure that the book was more than just recipes and pictures of drinks.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't expect anything less from you talking from
Well,
me.
it was a thing because when we had terrific photographers, Dylan and Jenny, who do great modern work, and you'll see their stuff all over in Vibe magazine and several other books now. We were their first book, and in the modern cocktail world, and particularly in the photography world, the inclination, the aesthetic is, of course, to take the drink and photograph the drink in isolation.
Sure.
On a
Background's blurred.
background's blurred. Maybe it's on a little piece of reclaimed wood,
Right.
or maybe there's a guy wearing there's a guy drinking it wearing a leather apron or a denim, and he's holding a side of beef over one side,
Right.
a good beard,
Just a realistic settings.
Yes, exactly. So we had to push back on that impulse to say, look, here's a Mai Tai, it's all by itself,
Yeah.
and make virtually every single cocktail shot a bit of a still life and a diorama.
Wow.
With here's some cork floats, here it's next to a tiki mug, here it's next to rope or a barrel,
Yeah.
or everything else. We wanted to make sure, and it's basically, the photographs are basically a metaphor for what I'm trying to say. The drinks don't exist by themselves.
Right.
They exist in a world of art,
A much larger,
a much
more
larger
richer,
context. And so that's why every one of our pictures has menu art or something else. None of the drinks, really, mostly, are in any kind of isolation.
Yeah.
Because the setting matters, context matters.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Well, it's great that you're in town. We've got Texas Tiki Week that just started Monday.
Yeah.
There's a great tiki map of bars. It's something that this year feels bigger and more embraced than ever, which is killer, that genre.
Yep.
And so you had a class or a seminar yesterday, and that's why you're in town. How did that go over at the
Terrific.
town?
Yeah, I had a lot of fun. We had a great seminar. I got to follow John Mulder, who's a really talented mug maker, which is great because, again, it was another example of, let me tell you a little bit more about the art.
Right.
And so he was able to get up and talk to the really skilled and beautiful art of making tiki mugs, and pouring molds and slip casting and all these things. And I still don't really understand it all. It's a real skill. And so he helped by having him there right in front of me. It helps again put an artistic context into the equation. So then I get up and talk about. I did a broad talk about the whole history, where it comes from, why we fell in love with it, and about the aesthetic and the evolution of the design of these bars. So, a great crowd, very receptive, probably 60% enthusiast, 40% industry, maybe.
That's pretty good.
Maybe 30% industry. So it was good. Always good to have some bartenders in the room too, and so it was really fun. And you're right, it feels like Texas Tiki Week, because I remember when it started.
Yeah.
First Texas Tiki Week, and I remember reading about it and going, but there aren't any tiki bars in Texas. I remember kind of laughing. I'm like, well, that's ambitious. I think that's pretty exciting. So now, though, you're getting more traction. You know, you've got Lalo in Houston. You know, there's a little bit more. There's actually some tiki in Texas, which is good, because there used to be quite a bit in the 1960s, and up until basically the early 80s. There were several. Multiple Trader Vic's down the Beachcomber locations, Ren Clark's, Polynesian Village. There were quite a few. Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston. Not sure there was much in Austin, but it was here. Just like and every time I go to a new city and I do a talk in Kansas City or I do a talk in Reno or whatever, I always put in slides of places that used to be there, because as we try to tell people how big this was, there's no evidence, because it all got destroyed. Everything got raised or remodeled in the 80s. So it's like, that's why we think of it as a lost civilization. Wow. When it used to be everywhere, and now it's virtually nowhere. Now it's, of course, now it's
reemerging, sure.
Reemergent. But every time I go to a city, I can say, look, here's 15 places that used to be in your town that you've never heard of. Especially I got bartenders in their 20s and 30s, and these places all closed before they were born. So like, you just look, and people go like, whoa, oh yeah, I know that street corner. That's a Taco Bell now or something, or whatever it is. You know, kind of people are always like, I didn't know all that was here. And it's like, yeah, I know, because it was wiped off the face of the earth. It was like it never happened. It was the good taste police showed up and decried everything as tacky and wiped these things out. And that's why we have to, helping to explain that this used to be everywhere is great.
That's right.
It lets us
ubiquitous thing. It's hard for us. We're not familiar with that piece. Well, so I've got 3 more questions for you.
Hit me.
And I know you.
And I'll probably maybe I can shut up at some point.
Maybe I can shut up.
I'm rambling too much.
No, it's good. It's good. So I love the OFTD. I was recently in Paris. And I was at Dirty Dick's.
Right on.
And like, you're from Texas? I'm like, yes. And he goes, okay. And they served my wife and I and everybody behind the bar OFTD shots, which is not an easy shot. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't drink a lot of overproof stuff. But how do you feel to be one of the guys in the band that created this song?
It was
known as
fun.
OFTD,
it was we had such a good time. It was really fun. It's that kind of the wonderful mad genius of Alexander, who just said, came to all of us and said, what's missing? What do you guys need in rum? And we said, well, we need full-bodied, overproof, unapologetic rum.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, unapologetic. It's rum that's proud to be rum.
Sure. Black Flaggish.
Yeah. So we said we need here's what we need. And we brought him a bunch of examples, and I think I brought a 1950s Lemon Heart. Jeff bought a Kahala Bay, which is a sadly gone rum now, recently discontinued product. And we tasted things, and we just said, well, we want the funk. We want some Jamaican heft to it. We want some Guyanese richness. We want all these things to come together. And he said, great, don't call us, we'll call you. And he disappeared with our samples. And 6 months later, he said, come to the chateau, Martin. Come to the chateau. We'll make He doesn't talk like Maurice Chevalier. I just like to imagine he does. And we'll make some rum, huh?
Yes.
He sounds like that. But we really, and I don't know, do you know the whole story, the sort of apocryphal birth of the name and all this?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not apocryphal, it really happened. But yeah, it's it was, as we were tasting this really lovely blend of Jamaica and Guyana rums, Dave Wondrich said, do you have any of that, some of that old, like, 8-year-old Barbados in the back? You could just put a touch in so we get a little more oakiness and a little of that nice, sort of medium body quality to it. He said, sure, and they came in, they took a little split, and we came back, tasted it again, and Dave like this, and he said, oh, fuck, that's delicious. and Alexander and his right hand, Guillaume, looked at each other, and they said, that's it, that's what we'll call it. Oh, fuck, that's delicious. And I said, you can't call it that. Don't worry, we'll figure it out.
You work backwards to kind of clean it up.
So I said, I'm pretty sure the TTB isn't going to sign off on, oh, fuck, that's delicious. I think that's highly descriptive. So here this product comes out, old-fashioned, traditional dark, OFTD. On the label, it's funny because I just thought, oh, this is so corny. I was mortified.
Really?
I thought this is a terrible idea. I really did. I didn't like the name at all.
Yeah.
And I was totally wrong because
It's resonated massively.
It's resonated hugely. People love the story.
Yeah.
People think it's fun, and I'm glad because I was a little too, I guess, I don't know, puritanical about it. I was like,
raving success.
Yeah. No, it's a blast.
Beautiful.
And people love it, and it's also a little bit of a departure for them because it's the only it's their only product without dosage. It's the only unsweetened plantation rum.
Yeah.
So it's and as it's going to be finding its home primarily in exotic cocktails, which we'll be adding sugar anyway. It's sort of a natural.
Perfect. Yeah.
So many of their really beautiful long aged rums with the dosage are oftentimes enjoyed by themselves.
Right.
OFTD is I don't nobody really thought OFTD would be used by it. It's not really one for relaxing. I mean, I've had it many times on a big ice cube, and I quite like it.
Yeah, if you could dilute it a bit, for sure.
Yeah, I like a big rock in it, and it's been a lot of fun to be involved with it.
That's a crazy. I mean, it's really, really cool. All right, so I asked this question of all the guests, but I'm asking it a little bit different for you because you and I think we both like goth music a bit. You can call it different. You can call it new wave. You can call it whatever, right? Been listening to a band actually recently, which I can't even remember the name of it, but there's lots of great stuff from the Brits in that period. So you are at any bar in the world, doesn't matter where.
Yeah.
You're sipping a fine tiki cocktail.
Yeah.
And you could sit and have this cocktail with any gothic new wave band member. Who might you like to just sit down, chill, and have a conversation with?
Who would I love to sit down and drink with? I might say Martin Gore.
Oh my gosh, man.
Because I think it would be fun because I'm also a little bit of a synth nerd, and I think it might be fun to dork out on electronic sound synthesis and early keyboards and talk about just kind of the early days in the 80s of working with some pioneering equipment and stuff like that. And I think that'd be fun because he's clearly someone who is definitely as enraptured with the technology as he is with the music.
That's right.
I think that might be fun. He's kind of a weirdo, so I don't know if he's much of a conversationalist, but I
think he'd be good with some drinks in.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's. I think it'd be. I think that's the first person that springs to mind.
That's amazing. I would. Him or Dave Gone too. I'd like.
Absolutely.
Gone's cool. Clean now, but.
Yeah, that's true. He's not drinking, but I was like, he was dead for 3 minutes. I keep saying nobody is appreciating the fact that he's a zombie. He's literally The Walking Dead. Remember, he died.
Yeah,
and nobody seems to care. Like this guy's like brains.
They're here next week.
Oh, D-Mode's here next week.
I'm going to see him on Thursday.
Good. His set list this tour is excellent.
Is it good?
Excellent. At least what I've read. I didn't manage to get tickets for.
They're so damn expensive, man. It's really crazy.
Expensive.
But that's good. That's brilliant, Martin Gore.
Yeah.
I get that. The last question then is that you've had this deep passion for tiki, which now I understand is because of the cultural ramifications, the richness, and the many facets of it as an art form.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see yourself ever able to love another genre of spirit in that same way?
Well, I mean, I definitely expressed a love for gin with Whitechapel, and I wanted again to do the same kind of immersive experiential thing.
Yeah.
And that's why we make it look like this imaginary abandoned tube station, Victorian era tube station, and it's all just it's very contrived.
Yeah.
But in a fun way because rum, on the face of it, rum at least tends to telegraph a good time as a spirit. It sort of projects already, even if it's people maybe not taking it very seriously as a spirit. Rum already projects lots of images in lots of people's minds, particularly beaches and sunshine and relaxation and the tropics and all these things. So gin does not.
No, it's very pensive.
Yeah, gin's very pensive. Maybe, in your best case scenario, you might think of gin as being very serious.
Right.
Worst case scenario, it's stuffy or an old man thing. And I thought, well, I don't see gin like that at all. I see gin as extraordinarily lively, incredibly flexible. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
Diverse. I think gin becomes it's real alchemy in gin. In a way,
that's a great point.
Not just in the manufacture of gin, because as you well know, when you put all those things together, sometimes the output is totally unexpected.
Oh yeah.
Or when you're doing a steep and boil, like how these two things really fought each other during this part, and maybe we should try a little different this way. But then not only is the actual manufacture of the gin kind of fascinating in what happens, but it's what happens when you mix with it too. Gin in cocktails to me is just transformative because it makes in a drink everything, all the ingredients taste different. It doesn't taste like you make a great a margarita, right? Or make a what's tequila taste like in a great margarita? It tastes like tequila.
Yeah.
It tastes like tequila and lime. It doesn't becomes gin in cocktails becomes something else, and the other ingredients become something else.
Right.
The savoriness of the botanicals and the aromatics transform the whole thing until you don't feel like you're just drinking gin and other ingredients. You feel like you're drinking You feel like you're drinking a glass full of almost unidentifiable ingredients.
Right.
Like really, it's so interesting what it does to drinks, and how you come up with a great drink. And this is you've spoken with Alex, and Alex, our beverage director, who came up with all of our modern drinks at Whitechapel. We would be testing them, and I'd look at the recipe and say, "This looks great. What a cool idea. This recipe looks dun 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 dun."
Yeah.
And then we drink it, and we go, it's not working.
It's unpredictable.
And then he's like, "What? Too much of this, too much of that." I said, "It's the gin. It's the gin. This is the wrong gin for this drink. This gin is too heavy on the cardamom or something.
Yeah.
Let's try something that's a little more focused on a base note. Maybe it's got a little more cassia or maybe a little bit more orris or something." And then you go, "Oh, there it is. That's what was, And sometimes it's just a lot of trial and error. But that's why all the drinks use different gins, because it's really been, we have 120-odd cocktails on the menu at Whitechapel.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how many gins
I can't imagine.
to use. I don't know. It takes at least 30 different gins to make the menu, and they've all been. Everything has had thought in it. Every gin is there for a reason.
Right.
And my bar manager Megan and Alex really carefully think about everything that they do when they do new drinks, and they think this works with this or this doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a really thoughtful process, and it does take a lot of trial and error. And that's what's fascinated me about that. I don't think there's any other. I've given a lot of thought because people think that I'm on a train to keep doing more single spirit projects, but honestly, I don't see that happening. I'm not. I think a lot of people execute tequila and whiskey focused places very well already, and I don't feel any urge. I just felt like gin needed it, and of course, obviously, rum really needed a hero, and I love seeing more and more places do it. There's more and more some place like Rumba, which has up in Seattle, which has a terrific selection, a knowledgeable team and stuff, and also realizes that Tiki, just like with Smuggler's Cove, Tiki is 30 years of a 3-century-old spirit. You don't need to be a Tiki bar by any means to be a great rum bar.
Yeah.
There's lots of room for exploration in terms of the aesthetic and the kind of food you pair and the way it's decorated, but because rum is telling such a broad story, there's lots of ways to present it.
Well, I mean, it's been a great chat, man.
My pleasure.
It's been really cool to just understand this story, and I really have a fondness for rum. It's something that runs deep in my heart. It does with gin, and maybe a few other things. But I want to summarize it and say that you're a thoughtful, thought-provoking dude.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you, sir.
I think that you've really helped the narrative of Tiki. I think you've helped enlighten people. It's a great thing, man.
Yeah. There is a bit of you're right. I mean, there's a bit of a mission, I suppose, and at least, fortunately, now I've got a 3-pound doorstop that's, helps tell the story. Tell folks it's great for tenderizing chicken, too. That thing's it's a little tank.
Multi-purpose.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope to see you soon, and I would love to grab a Tiki drink with you someday. That's kind of, for me, like, firms everything up. Comes full circle. But also, lastly, want to see your return to being a mortuary attendant.
I haven't ruled it out yet.
Soon enough, yeah?
It's not too late. Tiki-themed funeral parlor. What says good times like,
Best soundtrack in the world, I bet. It'd have to. So.
There's a good sketch in there somewhere.
There is. There's got to be. Thanks so much for chatting, Martin.
Cheers, Mike.
Safe travels.
Thank you much.
Well, there we have it. Mr. Tiki himself, Mr. Martin Cate, San Francisco, Smuggler's Cove, Whitechapel, dedicated to rum, dedicated to gin, in town for Texas Tiki Week. Texas Tiki Week bringing some fine personalities into Austin, Texas, Houston, Dallas, some of these great places to hang out, celebrate rum, celebrate the artistic and cultural ramifications of tiki, the Polynesian funk, if you will. And it's great just getting to see where Martin comes from, you know, a sci-fi guy, a music guy, a goth guy, talking The Cure, Depeche Mode, all this stuff. I see a lot of similarities between he and I, except he's really, really done something with this tiki thing, don't you think? So thanks everybody for listening to Should Have You with Mike G. No matter how excited you are to see the new Blade Runner movie with Ryan Gosling, or if you're thinking, man, I wish they'd make a new season of Futurama, please keep dancing.